All right, hey guys, there's the camera. All right, here we go. So this is part two of our spring weaving. Last time we made this little checkerboard pattern weaving. So if you don't have this, you need to go find part one and catch yourself up. So here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna consider this like the sky, and these squares are like an abstract version of the clouds or something. So abstract art is where you take something that's based on a real life object and simplify it a little bit. You make it look how it a little bit different than it looks in real life. Okay, we can talk about abstract art another time, but for now we're just going to have these square clouds floating around in our blue sky background for spring. So I want you to take your scissors and put it away, okay? Because I have a challenge for you. I'm going to have you make a collage, which means we're going to cut out, right? Cut out some shapes without using our scissors, okay? So you're going to find some pieces of paper, okay? And you're going to be tearing shapes to fill in your collage, okay? So you can just rip the paper apart if you want to, okay? But if you're going to get the shapes that you actually want, you're going to have to be a little bit more controlled than that, okay? So for example, if I just want some grass here along the bottom, okay, I probably can't just tear the paper, okay? When I did that, it just tore it in all kinds of uncontrolled ways, okay? So instead of just making a big rip in it, then I want to actually follow a line, okay? So I can draw the line on there with my pencil if I want to, and I'm gonna put my thumbs together, okay, so that my thumbs are almost touching each other, and I'm just gonna push away with one and pull up with the other one, and I'm just gonna tear a little bit at a time in order to tear this shape to the shape that I want, okay? And so now it has this kind of rough edge on it, which is a little different look than you would get if you were actually using a scissors, okay? And that's okay, that's actually what we want. We want to do something a little bit different, okay? So you can see when I tear it, I can't really control where the line goes, but if I use that big rip, it doesn't really work. But if I tear it a little bit, taking these small little tears or rips one at a time, then I can get that, okay? So I can make the grass. So I want you to think about what are some springtime things, right? The trees are starting to get their leaves back, the flowers are coming up, okay? The animals are starting to come out. What else can you think about, right? It's almost Easter time, usually in the springtime. Sometimes Easter's so early it's almost winter, but it's a springtime thing. And so there are a lot of things that you can think of to do for your picture, but we'll just do some basic things. Maybe a tree and a flower, some sun, okay? You could get some animals in there if you want to, but the real challenge is how do you do that just by tearing, okay? So if I want to make a sun, okay, I can do that circle shape, okay? But the challenge for me is, can I tear just a little bit at a time and actually end up with a shape that looks like a circle, okay, without even having to use my scissors, okay? And if I spend a little time at the tearing process, I can, right? So I can have that sun shape and I can tear along those lines that I made. So that's what I want you to do. Spend some time thinking about things and drawing some things and then tear them, okay? So maybe I'll make a little rock here, okay? So I can always draw the shape that I want for my rock, but the challenge is, can I spend the time to tear this paper with enough control that I can actually get the shape out of the paper without a scissors, okay? So I'm going to spend a little bit of time tearing, and I bet you're going to spend a little bit of time tearing. And then we'll put this scene together piece by piece. You don't really need to glue anything down now because you might change your mind about where things go. So let me work on tearing a few things out. You work on tearing a few things out, and then we'll glue up everything and then see what we get. Okay, but before you do that, let me show you a neat trick here, okay? So paper has something called a grain, okay? You may have heard that when you refer to wood, like wood has a grain. That means that it has a certain direction to it, okay? So if I work with paper and I tear with the grain, okay, you can kind of feel the paper. If you bend it one way, it'll bend easy. If you bend it the other way, it'll be a little harder to bend. It's kind of subtle, but if you tear with the grain, it'll generally, okay, tear pretty easily in a straight line. But if you tear against the grain, okay, it tends to not tear as straight of a line. It tends to go off to the sides, okay, and it's much harder to get it to tear in a nice straight strip like I showed you, okay? So think about that, try to feel that, and when you're trying to do your tearing, and tear with the grain when you need to. Okay, so I'm getting pretty far along, okay? I found some paper in a magazine that I thought was kind of cool, right? And it had a nice gray color that I thought looked good for a rock, so you might even think about tearing out some pages from some old magazines to find some different kind of colors or textures that you can add to your background. Okay, here's another challenge for you. If you want to make a symmetrical shape, then fold your paper in half and then try tearing two of the exact same shape out of the two layers of paper, okay? Depending on how thick your paper is, that'll be easier or harder, okay? But if you can, then you can get those apart. Well, maybe you can get them apart. There we go, okay? Then you can add symmetrical shapes by tearing out two things at the same time, okay? Sometimes it's easier to tear multiple sheets of paper than it is to cut multiple sheets of paper with the scissors. So that's one way to think about doing that. So I'm going to add a few more things and then we'll glue everything down and we'll be just about finished up with this. Okay, so I'm pretty close right here. So we're going to glue everything down now. So there's a couple of different things you can do, okay? If the piece is pretty large, it's fine to use the glue bottle to do that, okay? You might even find that the glue stick is fine for that, but try not to put a ton of glue on things. You really don't need a lot, okay? That'll help save your glue, okay? And it'll help the glue from squishing out and making a mess of things. But a lot of these shapes are gonna be teeny tiny, right? They're gonna be pretty small, okay? And you don't want to put a ton of glue on there. So there's a little trick that I use sometimes, and I'll just put some glue out on a tray or a cup or a plate or something like that, okay? And then I'll find an old pencil, okay? One that's getting pretty small, okay? This is a color pencil, but you could use a regular pencil where the eraser's all the way worn down, okay? And then just dip your pencil into the glue and get a little glue on the back of it, and then you can pick up the shape with the glue on it, okay? And then you've got that glue all ready to go there, okay? And then you can glue that shape back down that way, okay? So you can put a little glue on there and then pick up the shape, okay? And then whatever glue was on the end of your pencil will be enough glue to stick that shape down, okay? So that's especially good for dealing with these tiny little pieces where it's actually hard to kind of pick them up and put a little tiny bit of glue on there. Just pick them up with your pencil, okay? We just call this a glue stick, even though it's not like a regular glue stick. It's a stick that you're using glue, so we'll call it a glue stick, okay? Some people like to make some things a little bit three-dimensional, like the things on the butterfly here, the antennae, those can be three-dimensional, and some people add some other little three-dimensional elements in there, and that's fine. Just don't get too carried away with it, I think, because you want to keep this mostly flat. It is a collage, even though it has a little more texture to it because of the tearing. So I'm going to glue everything down and then I'll show you the finishing touches. Alright, so I've got everything glued down. So I know we said like don't draw anything, but we did draw a little bit, okay, just to make the shapes of things, okay. But one thing that's kind of nice to do at the very end is grab a black marker, and then if you want to add a little bit of detail to the rest of your shapes, you can kind of add some details on things that maybe were going to be too hard to do using the actual paper. To do that, you can add a few details in there, okay? Don't get carried away. Maybe just add a few things, okay, to your shapes to help everybody see what they were supposed to be, okay? Even just a little detail onto the rocks or something, a little texture on the trees, okay? So it's a collage, but we don't have to be stuck with just keeping everything that way. So it doesn't all have to be cut paper. We can add a little detail with our marker at the end. So that looks pretty good. It's pretty cool, right? We've got our cardinal there, we've got our butterfly, got our little tulip growing, okay? You might want to write your name at the bottom of your paper when you're all done. And cool, we made a springtime weaving, okay? No scissors involved in cutting out all those shapes, just using tearing to get everything taken care of. All right, well, hope you guys had fun with that. Remember, you can share pictures at the pop art at popolathe.org if you want to, and we'll put something together with these things that we've done with these projects. All right, thanks. See you guys later. Bye-bye.